There are friendships where two people are constantly talking. And then there are friendships where, after spending enough time together, you start noticing things without being told. That is what caught my attention about Shen Yue and Ding Yuxi on Chinese Restaurant 9. Because at first, their friendship doesn't look particularly extraordinary. They're funny together, they work together, and they tease each other. But keep watching. Something else starts happening. Ding Yuxi seems to notice Shen Yue before she even asks for help. And Shen Yue seems to notice things about Ding Yuxi that he doesn't necessarily say out loud. And by the end of the season, one emotional conversation makes you realize that this wasn't something that suddenly appeared in the finale. We had actually been watching it develop the entire time. Here on Asian Star Spotlight, we don't just talk about Shen Yu's dramas, pairings, possibilities, and co-stars. We explore the stories, the facts, and the bigger picture behind her journey. If that sounds like your kind of content, subscribe and join us right now. When Chinese Restaurant 9 began in Morocco, Shen Yue and Ding Yuxi weren't walking into some relaxing celebrity vacation. They had a restaurant to run. Shen Yue was responsible for the finances. Ding Yuxi was deeply involved in the restaurant's operations and kitchen work. And almost immediately, their jobs started pulling them toward each other. Money problems meant Shen Yue had to keep track of what was happening. Kitchen problems meant Ding Yuxi was constantly moving between tasks. So when something went wrong, these two often ended up solving it together. And that's where the first layer of their friendship was built. Reliability. Not grand gestures. Just, I've got this. Let's figure it out. I'll help. And when you're working under pressure every day, those little things add up very quickly. But what makes their relationship interesting is that eventually, it stopped looking like simple teamwork. Because Ding Yuxi wasn't only helping when Shen Yue asked. Sometimes, he seemed to notice the problem first. There's one moment from the market that really illustrates this. Shen Yue was anxious about navigating the crowded market to find a vendor. And Ding Yuxi immediately offered to go with her. No long discussion or dramatic announcement. Just, I'll go with you. And that's a tiny moment. But tiny moments are exactly where this friendship gets interesting. Because helping someone after they ask is one thing. Noticing that they need help before they ask, well, that's different. And the more you watch them, the more often that kind of rhythm appears. But here's what I really like about them. Their friendship wasn't built entirely around serious moments. They could also be ridiculously comfortable together. Remember the weird candy challenge? The two of them made almost identical faces after tasting the strange flavors. And instead of turning to everyone else, they immediately looked at each other. That little exchange was hilarious. But it also tells us something. They had developed their own little communication system. A look, facial expression, a ridiculous joke, and the other person already understood. That's what people mean when they say two people are on the same wavelength. And you can't manufacture that instantly. It comes from spending time together. Then the restaurant gets harder. And this is where the friendship becomes more revealing. Because pressure shows you what people naturally do. Ding Yuxi kept taking on work, kitchen tasks, heavy things and problems that needed solving. He was often the person who simply got on with it. And Shen Yue wasn't just benefiting from that. She was watching it. That's important. Because there are people who help you. And there are people who remember that you are helping. Those aren't always the same person. And by this point, Shen Yue seemed to have started seeing Ding Yuxi as more than the capable person who was always there when something needed doing. She was beginning to notice the person underneath that role. And then we get one of my favorite things about their dynamic. They could switch from being completely ridiculous and jovial to completely being serious, without it feeling awkward. During the promotional period for the show, they could play around and commit to absurd jokes together. But they also had conversations about their experiences in the entertainment industry and the whole pressure that came with growing up under public scrutiny. That's another piece of their friendship. They weren't connected only because they worked well together. They also seemed to understand parts of each other's lives that other people around them might not experience in quite the same way. And suddenly, the restaurant wasn't just where they worked. It was where they learned each other. Now here's where the whole story changes. Because if you watch the first few episodes and someone told you, wait until the finale, Shen Yue is going to get emotional talking about Ding Yuxi, it would probably sound like a completely separate moment. But it isn't, because by the time we reach the final episode, we've already seen the pattern. We've seen him help, seen them joke, seen them work under pressure, seen their comfort, and we've seen Shen Yue paying attention to him. So when the late-night wrap-up finally arrives, the moment lands differently. Shen Yue becomes emotional, and she tells Ding Yuxi, essentially, that out of everyone there, he is the person she feels the most for because he carries so much by himself. And honestly, that's the moment that made the entire friendship click for me. Because she wasn't simply thanking him. She was telling him, I saw you, and suddenly, all those earlier moments matter. The help, the jokes, the kitchen, the long days, and the little acts of support. They weren't separate scenes anymore. They were a pattern. And if you enjoy exploring Shen Yu's friendships, variety show moments, career journey, and the sides of her personality that viewers do not always see in dramas, the Asian Star Spotlight membership is now open. Members receive exclusive updates, early access to selected content, special community features, and more ways to be part of our growing Mooncake community. You can tap the join button, besides subscribe on the channel page whenever you are ready. And this is why I don't think the answer is simply, they have good chemistry. No, that's too easy. And we don't need to turn their friendship into romance to make it interesting. What makes their friendship special is something much more human. What makes it special is that they learn to notice each other. Ding Yuxi often seemed to notice when Shen Yue needed an extra hand. And Shen Yue seemed to notice when Ding Yuxi was carrying more than he was saying. One responded to the chaos around the other, while the other recognized the person doing the responding. And that creates a very different kind of friendship. Some can say, of course, they're entertainers. This was a television show. The footage was edited. Some of their closeness was probably helped by the fact that they worked together so much. And we can't use a variety show to pretend we know everything about their private relationship. But we don't need to, because the evidence we actually have is already pretty meaningful. They became comfortable, dependable, they even developed their own rhythm. And eventually, they became people who seemed to see each other. That's enough. And maybe that's why their friendship stayed with so many viewers. Not because there was one giant moment that proved everything. It was built from dozens of ordinary moments that only became meaningful when you put them together. A helping hand, shared joke, and a look across the room. Someone quietly taking on another task. Someone else remembering that they did. And then at the very end, Shen Yue finally said out loud what the entire season had quietly been showing us. She noticed him, and he had spent the season making sure she didn't have to face everything alone. So if you ask me what made Shen Yue and Ding Yuxi's friendship so special, that's my answer. They didn't just become comfortable around each other. They became attentive to each other. And sometimes that's what turns a good friendship into a memorable one. Not how loudly you say you care, but how quickly you notice when the other person needs you, and how deeply you remember what they've been carrying. And honestly, that's a friendship worth remembering. Before you go, Star Mooncakes, what was your favorite Shen Yue and Ding Yuxi moment from the show? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this kind of deeper look at the people behind the headlines, subscribe to Asian Star Spotlight. And if you're already part of our Star Mooncakes community, thank you for being here. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.